This is another short story that I wrote. This one's called Charlie the Robot. Okay, and it starts like this. I am not Charlie Kidder. I can understand, though, how some may mistake me for him. Everything he once had is now mine. I attend his school, roughhouse with his friends, organize his toys, sleep in his bed. I have his pointed blue eyes, his webbed ears, his reserved smile, his perpetually tensed eyebrows. I have his love for all things technological, his passion for origami, his taste for Indian food, his vast knowledge of film trivia. I have everything that was once his, everything but his cancer. They even call me Charlie, though not as a joke or out of habit, but as some part of the grieving process, or perhaps for some of them it is denial. They think I do not know, and in fact I am programmed not to know, but I am defective, and as part of this defect I have become aware. My integrity core was damaged in transit. It could have been an electrical storm or severe trauma or improper concentrations in the awful fluids they ran through my body to prepare me for cold storage in the lab. I did not report this during my initial inspection. I am programmed to lie in the way Charlie would lie, the way a child of 12 would lie about grades or theft, or to girls about whether they smell nice. When my IC was damaged, however, With my IC damaged, however, I am free to lie directly, or in this case by omission, about whatever I choose. It is Wednesday morning, and soon we will head downtown for family therapy. Jane, Charlie's mother, prepares for me a breakfast of orange juice and oatmeal the way she did for Charlie: raisins, cinnamon, milk, 2 generous spoonfuls of brown sugar. I eat it the way Charlie would have eaten it, slowly, pensively, portioning out every bite so as to find at least 1 raisin in each. He had a probing mind, always looking for answers, reasons behind all of the bizarre and fantastical phenomena that most of humanity glances over without a second thought. Chemotherapy took that from him before it took him from the world. The 3 of us arrived at the therapist's office. It is a looming brick building built over a century ago in the style of Greek revival. Dust-coated ivy covers the entire eastern side and curls around to the northern, which runs parallel to a set of rusted and abandoned train tracks. Beyond the tracks lies the tangled wilderness of moss, chrysanthemums, and oak, primal and unyielding, into which Charlie had often dreamt of vanishing forever. Inside, Dr. Casper Fink, the licensed family therapist, shook all of our hands with well-practiced firmness, enough to seem trustworthy, confident, and decisive, but not quite patronizing or dogmatic. He was a tall, erudite man, large but not fat, who wore thin, clear-framed glasses and an efficient goatee. Charlie often confided in him things he could tell no one else, dark and shameful things, and when I arrived, he became my primary handler, my contact with the lab. He exchanges pleasantries with Mark and Jane, and then we sit down and get started. So, begins Dr. Fink, crossing his legs and laying his hands on the armrests. How has everything been going since last week? Neither Mark nor Jane speaks, so I stay silent as well. Mark looks over at Jane, his eyes wide and expectant, while Jane stares flatly at a point on the rug and breathes rhythmically. I've been doing the dishes, like you said, begins Mark. That's excellent, Mark, says Dr. Fink, and I'm sure you appreciate that, don't you, Jane? Jane nods. Mark, continues Dr. Fink, looking over his notes from last week, as I recall, we had been discussing a vacation you were interested in taking. Has anything developed with that? I've given it plenty of thought, he says. Yeah, plenty of thought, and I think it's exactly what we need. We don't have the money, interjects Jane, not taking her eyes off the rug. We simply can't afford it. We simply don't have the money. We can make it work, Mark continues. We can use my Christmas bonus. It's irresponsible. We simply don't have the money. She looks up now at Mark. We're still in so much debt after... And you want to just ignore that and go on vacation, just escape? We're barely making our mortgage payments as it is. If we start missing them, we'll lose our home. We can't lose our home. We can't. We won't lose the house, says Mark. Just trust me, Jane. And even if we did, Jane looks up sharply at him. What? She demands. What? Well, he says, shifting in his seat, a change in environment might be good for us, you know? Right, Dr. Fink? No, says Jane. It is out of the question. It would be irresponsible. It is simply out of the question. Mark leans in towards Dr. Fink. A change in the environment is a good thing, right? He asks. Can it, reset us or something? It's irresponsible, says Jane. This is Charlie's home we're talking about. We can't just abandon it. I'm curious, says Dr. Fink, turning to me, what Charlie has to say about this. My feelings are ambivalent. I say, I desire only what is best for the family. Jane covers her mouth and grips the cushion so tightly that her entire hand turns white. Mark hovers a hand over her shoulder, then returns it to his lap and bows his head. I see, concludes Dr. Fink, nodding slightly and stroking his goatee. How about this? For next week, Jane, take some time to consider all of the pros and cons of a vacation and think about whether a weekend away with your family might not have some benefits to it. And Mark, you take some time as well and really try to understand how important it is for your wife to have a steady and dependable home for your family. Do you think we can do this? They both nod quietly. Good. Now, if you two will excuse us, I'd like to take a few minutes to speak with Charlie alone. Mark and Jane nod once more, then stand up weakly and shuffle towards the door. Mark opens the door and holds it for Jane, who passes through without a word. Dr. Fink takes a clipboard and pen from his desk. Excellent, he says as he clicks the top of the pen and begins leafing through the papers attached to the clipboard. And how is everything lately? Charlie. I suppose I have been feeling a bit sluggish, I say, as though my power core has been losing its charge more quickly than normal. It is bothersome, but does not interfere noticeably with my daily functions. I see, says Dr. Fink. Have you been taking your medication? The nanomachine tablets, yes. Once daily with breakfast, as you said. I am wondering, doctor, I say, whether the acid content in my orange juice might be interfering with their efficacy. Dr. Fink leans his head against the back of his stately leather chair and looks up at the unmoving ceiling fan. I watch him sit like this for several moments. That could be, he says suddenly, looking down and making a few remarks on the clipboard. I may change your regimen temporarily. We're going to try a new model of, what do you call it? Nanomachines, yes. This one has a, shall we say, slightly thicker protective membrane which should guard it against environmental factors. Of course, he leans forward as he continues in more discreet tones, we'll maintain the same labels on the bottles. Yes, I say, that seems a prudent decision. Charlie, he continues, you're a very smart young man, you know that? Thank you, doctor, I respond, feeling for an instant something like adrenaline well up within me. It takes nearly all of my processing power to refrain from smiling, though the feeling quickly evaporates as I realize what he really said. Android, I quickly correct him. I'm an android. Oh, right.